Why isn't this aspect of marijuana talked about? The depersonalization effect seems to be limited to persons already at risk due to other factors. Stress, trauma, etc. It appears to track the same way that the schizophrenia trigger effect. People who have had episode without cannabis use are much more likely to experience an episode with cannabis use than people who never had any episodes at all. After I smoked weed, this happened to me. I was stuck outside looking at myself in third person. After that I couldn't concentrate properly on things. Eventually my ability to concentrate returned after about 5 years. People I tell this to just think I am making things up. I like to think of myself as extremely conscious of myself. Perhaps this is why I noticed the change. There's a lot of articles out there on depersonalization after using marijuana, so I'm not sure why you think it isn't being talked about. A couple of quick examples. https://pubmed.ncb nlm.nih.gov/6969998/ The author describes 4 cases of prolonged depersonalization that occurred months after marijuana use. Each occurred in the setting of a stressful life event. Depersonalization is a common experience during acute intoxication with marijuana, and these cases suggest that after the patients had experienced depersonalization, external stressors and intrapsychic factors may have contributed to its continued use as a defense mechanism. https://psychiatry.online.org/doi/10.1176/appy.ojpre.2018 130,202. This seems to be a pretty involved one, and mentions that the lifetime prevalence of the disorder is about 2% worldwide, as well as in the US. I don't think Post Malone is a good place to get your medical information. I've never had depersonalization with weed, coke, shrooms, acid, Molly, Xanax, or alcohol, but meth and lack of sleep would make me think there's a secret society of plant people shifters who kidnap dogs to turn them into compost for the purpose of using them as filler for roads to the ocean to establish fishing routes as to knock China out of the fishing market. I also thought some kid who was on a ride along with the cop who took me to the hospital for running across a freeway was my brother. I smoke weed, and it's not magical. It's not all the beautiful things people say. It's just another drug, and it has a lot of bad things as any drugs. The problem with weed is that if you talk bad about it like me right now, people will eat you. I'm sacrificing some karma here, but telling the truth, weed feels good. But smoke it daily and you will notice a lot of negative effects, as any drugs. So let's stop treating it like it's magical. It's not. Yeah, I mean you kinda have to be predisposed to it. I'm the queen of disassociation and weed hasn't made that any worse. That being said, any drug or substance will affect people differently. I've known people who literally get psychosis from marijuana. That doesn't mean it's the norm. Eric Ox doesn't think this is true. Eats some more edibles. This was my experience with marijuana. I smoked pot for a while, and then one day I was dissociating out of nowhere and I haven't really felt the same since. It's definitely not talked about it enough. I used to smoke weed on the regular and the derealization got extremely bad. Worst feeling I've personally ever experienced. RDPDR. I've seen it discussed here fairly frequently. People even get psychosis, delusions, hallucinations, bizarre thinking from smoking weed. Anything can happen, but it all depends on the person and other factors that we don't know about. Always taking a risk even if the risk is low. I feel like any negative comments about weed are met with disdain. People think it is some miracle and somehow not bad for you. I think the bigger thing we need to talk about is CHS. Cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome, aka throwing up every time you smoke weed. I temporarily developed CHS a couple years ago and it was awful. I could barely eat for days. The worst part is everyone knows that weed is supposed to help nausea. Well, did you know it can make it worse? Since I had it before and obviously wanted to know if I could ever smoke again, I've done a lot of research. We still don't know what causes it to happen, or what causes it to be temporary versus permanent. I had been smoking a few times a day every day for a few months. This was after quarantine and all my classes were online when it happened. But people can smoke all day every day for 10 years and never develop it. It's pretty rare, but it happens, and I obviously never thought it would happen to me. God, yes, this. I feel the same way. Like you're always zoned out and your head feels like a million tons. I smoked for years and never got this even a little bit. So people do talk about it. However, these effects are very, very rare and usually affect people who were already predisposed to other issues, such as schizophrenia, panic attacks, manic episodes, or anxiety attacks. Usually it can just unfortunately bring those issues to the forefront much more rapidly than if the person never smoked it to begin with. And then some people can experience psychosis effects after large amounts of weed are smoked or ingested, especially if that person is new to it and goes all in way too fast and does way more than they can handle. There's a lot of factors that can lead to those end results. I smoke weed regularly and disassociate all the time when I'm not high. Because people love weed and think it's a perfect miracle plant with zero harmful effects. I think weed is less harmful overall than alcohol. Not really sure that's up for debate. And it should be legal. But there are issues with it and they need to be talked about. I mean, there are a lot of bad things that can come from being a pothead if you don't properly regulate your intake. Cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome is literally caused by just smoking too much for too long.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Ericast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.